Pewaukee, I ask that everybody please rise if possible for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Jenna, could we have roll call, please?
Trustee Gergen? Here. Trustee Rhodey? Not yet. Okay, Trustee Belt? Here. Trustee Krasovich?
Here.
Trustee Kreiser?
Here.
Trustee Grabowski?
Here.
President Knudsen?
Here.
And we'll say Trustee Rhodey is excused for the moment.
Okay.
But not later.
I don't think he's coming
He's
today.
not coming at all?
No,
Okay, he's excused.
He's out of town, right?
Yeah.
He's out of town? Yeah.
Oh, he's in Italy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
Or he's
excuse.
flying back, one or the other.
So
Not
he would be
excused.
excused.
Okay.
Not at this moment.
Item 2 are public hearings. We have none. Item 3, approval of the regular village board meeting September 3rd. I hope everyone's had a chance to look them over. Are there any questions, comments, corrections as it relates to that topic? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the September 3rd minutes as presented. A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are hereby adopted. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with board members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the board is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the board. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, with time being indicated by an audible alarm. When the alarm sounds, speakers are asked to conclude their comments. Speakers are asked to use the podium and state their name and address. Anyone here that would like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am. Please come up to the podium.
My name is Lori Kyle, K-E-I-H-L, of 1254 Willow Grove Drive. Perhaps this would be addressed later, but at the end of August, I sent an email to the village. It was passed along to you, Jeff, regarding the quiet zone, which has been a topic of conversation since I built my home here in 1987. There haven't been any updates that I have noticed on any agendas recently. However, your response, Jeff, indicated that you checked with the village engineer today, and he is having, not had, but is having a company put together a quote to address the quiet zone installation approval in conjunction with the city of Pewaukee. They are also looking into a quiet zone in Otmire. He is hoping we will have something by this next meeting on the 17th to discuss. So number one, disappointment that it sounds like perhaps there are conversations starting. At some point, I would like to hear what has been discussed, what has been resolved, if there's any kind of a timeline that has been built or prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 5, ordinances. We have none. Resolutions, see agenda item 11D. Old business, we have none. New business. A, discussion and possible action to approve certified survey map request to combine 2 properties. These parcels are 0.579 acres combined, located at PWV 0904023-006 and PWV 0904023-006. Are zoned R5 single-family residential district property. Owners, applicants are Patrick and Jean Patterson. This is coming from the Planning Commission for the board to approve. This was approved by the Planning Commission. Are there any questions, comments as it relates to this subject?
I'll make a motion to approve the certified survey map to combine 2 properties.
Second, Gergen.
Okay, we have motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Discussion and possible action on use of election drop boxes outside of Village Hall. Jenna?
There we go. Okay, I can discuss this a little bit. So prior to July 5th of 2024, the drop boxes for returning absentee ballots was not allowed under state law. Now it is permitted under state law due to the Supreme Court decision. So we do have 2 boxes outside the Village Hall main doors. For this past August election, I kind of allowed it because it was very close to when we were doing everything, so I just sort of allowed it for that election. We didn't have any problems, and honestly, we didn't really have a lot in the drop boxes. We only had a few, if I recall. Oh, whoops, I still had that on. So I'm kind of, it's up to the clerk, but I'm bringing it to the board in case anybody had any questions, comments, concerns about it. It's not illegal to put your ballot in the drop box anymore. But if we want to make it so it's still not allowed in our municipality, we can. I just need to put signs on the boxes and let the voters know for the upcoming election.
Discussion, questions? Oh, nobody wants to say anything? Well, I'll be the first to say it. I am not in favor of drop boxes. It's getting way too easy to vote. It's getting way too easy to do something that's illegal. I'm from the old school that years ago when I had to vote, if I wasn't going to be couldn't make the voting booth, I had to have a damn good reason why I had to get a ballot prior to the day of voting. I wish the government would make the day of voting a holiday and get rid of the drop boxes. I have watched different things on TV, and in Pennsylvania there was a lady that was caught. It was not a presidential election, but she was caught stuffing the ballot box. I just don't like the idea that you can come in and drop a ballot off anywhere. I always thought that the law stated, or it was supposed to state, that there had to be an elected official, or not elected official, but someone in the staff that could notice that somebody's watching the box, and it was in a secure area where nobody could tamper with it. And I understand they're tamper-proof, but that doesn't mean that somebody can drop off ballots willy-nilly, and I'm just not in favor of it. I know we used them at the last election. I didn't know we did that. I think the idea that we need to make this as easy as possible just rings of we're making it easy enough to make everything possible to make it illegal, not illegal, but easy to do things that are illegal. Voting is a right if you're a citizen of this country, and I just don't feel that putting drop boxes, I know we're just going to put one out in front here, is the right way to go here. I would like to see, if people are going to drop off their ballots, that they're dropped off inside the building. I'm not sure if we put drop boxes inside the building so they can be seen easily. I've never done that. I've usually done in-person voting here or at the day of. So I've never used a drop box in here. So Jenna, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong. Do you use a drop box in the building, or do they have to come up to the window and drop it off to you?
Before we go to that step, can I actually present some thoughts as someone who's used
Sure.
the Dropbox in the past?
Sure.
Awesome. Absentee voting actually has a long and rich history in this country. It started back during the Civil War, when its adoption allowed about 150,000 Union soldiers to vote absentee from the battlefield. And we first saw states allowing absentee voting more than 40 years ago. That's because the process has been demonstrated to be safe time and time again. Drop boxes have been available for about 3 decades at this point, providing absentee and early voters with a protected way to ensure that their ballot will be counted and their voice will be heard. That's super important for shift workers, for voters with young families, for those with health conditions that require social distancing, for the elderly and disabled voters who might have difficulty navigating lengthy walks or standing in line at the polls. That's people like my son, who will be a voter as of next year. At this point, these boxes are standard. They're used in more than half of the states in this country, in both Republican and Democratic counties, without incident, or with extraordinarily rare incident that is thankfully caught, thank goodness. The drop boxes in the village meet all recommended safety requirements. They're well lit, they're under 24-hour video surveillance. I confirmed that with staff, including the chief, and they have features that protect them from tampering. The dedicated staff members who do manage the influx of ballots via the Dropbox follow meticulous, very clearly delineated processes, and that box is only opened by qualified election workers. It's also worth noting that the location of those boxes outside the doors eases the path for those who might want to actually observe the process of the sacred right to vote as it's being exercised. I know that increasing participation in this democracy is something that we have worked for as a board. I'm really proud of that. And ballot drop boxes ensure that more Wisconsin voters will have the opportunity to do just that, participate in our democracy.
Anyone else? Yes, Heather.
President Knudsen, I agree with you that I think that the election day should be a holiday where people are off. But I have to say I agree with Trustee Krasovich about the ballot box. I think we should be able to use that. Also, the process for getting a ballot is not an easy one. You have to upload identification. It has to be sent to you, or you go through the process here and then you can put your ballot in the box. So I have no problem with having the ballot box and support it.
I'm with, sorry, I know someone else had their hand up, I'm sorry, I just kind of jumped in. I'm with President Knudsen, especially here in the village. We're a small village, we're accessible, it's very easy. If you're gonna take it to the drop box, it really is just as easy to walk it into the clerk's office to deliver your ballot. I don't really see the need here. I also don't see, on the other side, I also don't see the village being a risky area for fraud as it comes to fictitious ballots or large dumps of ballots being placed into the drop boxes. I don't overly believe that that is a huge issue here, but I just do believe from an election integrity standpoint that we should have better control over the ballots. Even coming to on election day, you can still deliver your ballot to WCTC as opposed to delivering it here. It's another thing for the clerks and the staff to have to do to monitor their drop box on election day also when it's already busy. So I just don't see it being that much of an inconvenience by not having them, and I think it helps with the security of the overall election.
Anyone else? Jim?
I don't know. I have to say, I feel like we are kind of taking a national partisan stance on a very small, what is a pretty, I don't want to say not invalid topic within the village. I learned at a teenage age that if you're going to commit a crime, you don't do it in front of the police, and our only drop box being 10 feet from the police station kind of screams that category. Like, I'm not going to go to where the people are going to arrest me to commit the crime. I'm not going to make it easier for them. So the fact that we're talking about one drop box where it's always been, it's not heavily used, it's monitored, it's outside the police. We're not just throwing them in the parks. No offense, Nick. I know those are secured as well. But we're not. Yeah, we're not just dropping one at Kiwanis Village Park and saying, well, we'll check that in a day or two. I really don't see this being an issue. This isn't, if this was multiple drop boxes around the village, I would have some questions on it. And on top of it, even voter intimidation factor comes in, not just authenticity of the ballots, but the fact that this is so heavily monitored right outside our very well-staffed village police department. I trust its integrity, and I have no issue with the one drop box being placed outside our village hall as it has always been.
Kristen?
I agree with Trustee Grabowski's comments as well as very well spoken Trustee Krasovich this evening.
Yeah, much more eloquently spoken than me. I didn't cite any sources or anything.
I do believe that while voting is a right and it is sacred and all of those things, that making it easy or easier potentially in a very safe and supported and proven way, as the world continues to get more and more easy and quick for families and people running to their jobs and all of those things. I mean, there is a difference in being able to, maybe if your only time to drop it off is at 9 o'clock at night when you're coming home from your shift at Pick and Save or something, and you can't be there the next day. And hopefully you were well thought out enough to apply for your absentee ballot, but not everyone is able to keep all their ducks in a row all the time. And I do want to hear I want the opportunity for everyone in our village to be able to vote. And I have a lot of faith in the process and a lot of faith in the staff that, they are matching every they would be matching every ballot box vote just as they do the absentee ballots, and when they match you when you go up and vote in person, to know that every person is accounted for and has voted, already one time. So I'm less concerned about voter tampering, and think that if we can make it easier on maybe a busy mom or dad or elderly person to just drop it off in our very secure area, I don't have an issue with that.
I don't want to point this out because it's definitely calling us to the carpet, but we have been getting a lot of heat lately from the elderly community of Pewaukee, as in not being friendly or accommodating to our elder residents. And I feel like this is just going to be another kind of thumb in the eye if we were to do that, because this is a method that has been put into place to assist a lot in the elderly and the working class and the disabled, and those are the ones that we don't exactly have the best rapport with right now. And I'm not looking to throw another log on that fire.
So is this,
Sorry, and I also think your point about that it's under 24-hour surveillance and
Right.
is extremely important as well.
Pictures, Chief sent pictures about how well surveilled they are, and I did a deep read on the security requirements that are actually coming down from the Department of Homeland Security. It is not a casual undertaking at all. It is very thoroughly managed.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment?
so is this something that we would vote on?
It says possible
Yes.
action.
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue having the ballot boxes.
And to clarify, it is a ballot box, correct?
There are two.
But they're in the same location.
Yep, so we have two. There's one on the door out here and there's one over on
On this
this
door over
street.
here.
Yep, we do have a separate box right in front of our glass in the office. That's usually for utility bills. We can make it so they can put them in there or not put them in there as well. So we technically have three.
I mean, I'm only looking at this as after hours, basically, if somebody
Okay.
can't make it during office hours, so.
Because I can put a sign that says, don't use this one specifically in front of the window, this is only for utility
If
bay.
memory serves, that's the guidance I gave at the last election was for
Okay.
the utility drop box.
It's
to have
just
a sign
for-
that said no ballots.
No ballots,
I
right,
remember it saying no ballots. Yeah.
right, okay.
Although that was no ballots, period, will it be confusing, or do we feel like we can manage that messaging effectively? to
If
indicate
someone
people-
has a question, they can come in and say, you know, if you do approve the ballot boxes, I can say, not this one specifically, only the two
Let me just
outside.
clarify, because what is the goal then of having those boxes separated and only allowing voting in specific boxes? Because if someone's coming in to talk to you, that person can probably come in and go ahead and cast their votes. It's during. business
Right,
hours.
yeah, or they can mail them,
Challenges.
right, yeah, I'm
So
not
what's the,
sure.
what are we achieving by saying you voted this box but not this box? I worry actually that could cause more.
I guess the
confusion.
concern that was expressed to me by staff last time was that box doesn't get checked every day, if that recall. if
But
I
it will
recall
be
that
during the
correctly.
elections.
It will be
so-
during the elections if we make that a ballot box as well.
So, I mean, that would negate the concern, I guess.
So from the security standpoint, who is watching this surveillance camera 24/7?
You think that it's monitored by an individual? I actually think they just collect the footage and could review
That's
it.
what
if-
I'm asking.
Sorry, I'm just
but
not done
who-
speaking.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not actually done speaking.
Well,
What I was going to say is, I think that they take the footage, and then if there's an issue, they're able to review and identify if there's.
But we could miss an issue because there is not someone that's going to sit down and watch 24/7 a video. We won't know if someone comes with stacks of ballots and dumps them in there.
You're so right. We wouldn't know if there was somebody with stacks of ballots, if they somehow hid it under a coat or something like that. Nor would we if they did that inside the building and there wasn't
Well, we
somebody
would,
standing.
if they have to physically hand it to somebody, we would, because they would hand 10 ballots to somebody.
But don't they match everybody too
We do.
in the, like?
But we don't know that it's necessarily their vote if they're not the ones actually dropping it off.
So I think we have a motion and a second. Are we voting?
I don't know if we have a second, did we?
I didn't hear it.
Oh, I'll
I don't
second.
think anyone seconded.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Other than I'd like to say you guys convinced me. The drop boxes are okay, because they are going to be well monitored, so I've changed my opinion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
No? Oh,
And I'm not taking my crime to the police, so.
okay, so we have, it is carried 5-1.
Five.
5-1.
5-1.
Okay, item C. Discussion and possible action on Bell Tower Memorial Project at Kiwanis Village Park. Before I throw that out, I'm going to make a comment again. I was contacted from Italy by Mr. Rodi. He was not happy that this is on tonight because he has been one of the main people putting this together, funding it and just getting everything together. And he wished it would have been on something where he was here so he could discuss it. That's item number 1. And he would prefer if we're not gonna, if whatever we're gonna do is maybe table it till he can be here. But then I talked to the people from the Bell Tower yesterday, and they actually have people ready to go and start building the tower downtown, but it's going to be built in a 2-stage because every year they put it off, the cost has gone up. So unfortunately, the Bell Tower itself will not be available because that just went up now, and now it's $50,000. They, as Bob pointed out at the last meeting, they don't have the money for that. They're working on it, but they don't have it. So they're going to do it in 2 sections and hopefully be able to put it up next year. If we go with the idea of moving it from where it is now to the library, that puts basically I was told that puts it off till being built next year. The cost is gonna go up again because the plans are gonna have to be totally changed to fit in the library area. And I feel that, the board, when they approved this, it was for the downtown park, not Kep Park, but Kiwanis Park. And I think we should leave it down there, and I think we should just not change it at this time.
Jeff, real quick, I sympathize or empathize, whatever, feel for Bob on this one, as I know that he has been putting a lot of time and effort into it. Is it fair that we could have discussion and hear the details without taking action tonight?
No, we can hear it. I'm just stating my.
Because, I out of respect to Bob, who has put
Right,
time and effort into
right.
this, he should be here for whatever action is taken
Right.
on it, but I'd at least like to hear the presentation over again, or the proposal now, because I do feel the way it stands now is slightly different or significantly different than what we originally approved as a board. So it might just be good to hear all the details, but I would ask that we hold off taking action.
That's no problem. I just wanted to state that
Yep.
I'd mentioned with these two people and give you a little quick summary of what Bob has said to me.
Yeah, I think out
So-
of respect to him, we'll.
I guess, Nick, you have,
So the majority of what I would intend to talk about tonight is what's in the packet. So if you've reviewed that, I think that's the most helpful part for me. But when I received this update from Trustee Rhodey and Sherry Enters, who originally brought the project to me 5 years ago when I started here, as the project was at that time intended for the city cemetery. The project was not going to meet funding there, and relocation was determined and considered and brought to the Parks and Recreation Board, proposed at Kiwanis Village Park. And as the name states, the Bell Tower Memorial, that was what we reviewed over 2 years ago and was approved at that time for Kiwanis Village Park. When I was presented the two-phase project 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I could very much empathize with them as we're going through the struggles and price increases with the inclusive playground and splash pad at the sports complex. Our costs in just 2 years have gone up probably 35%. I certainly empathize with that. The intention was not to get this past Bob by any means. Bob and I have a wonderful relationship. It was simply after bringing it to the Parks and Recreation Board to bring it to the next authority point with the village board for consideration. So when they shared the two-phase project, that was my initial concern. And when I went back and reviewed my thoughts and notes from the meeting, I think building the Bell Tower Memorial in phases, with phase one not including the bell tower itself, and knowing that probably 20 to 30%, depending on where costs finish, will still not be held at the time. There's certainly a concern that the project may never get finished and have the bell tower itself. Without the bell tower, you would have something that looks nice, a flag court with crushed granite, nice flower decorations, paver bricks that are engraved and have been contributed towards. But less than a quarter mile away at Lakefront Park, you'd have the same 6 or 7 flags, I believe. And you have a potential duplication. But my biggest concern is the presentation from 2 years ago, and then as we got closer with the presentation and agreement with Matt and Attorney Blum, as presented in the two-phase project, phase one is not what was approved. So I shared the update with the Parks and Recreation Board last Wednesday, and that was kind of their stance, is without the bell tower, it's just not the same project. I mean, it's called the Bell Tower Memorial. So that was the thought a month ago, roughly. We discussed at a village department head meeting, and that's when Nan found out a little more about the project and shared some interest and ideas about it and what they're looking to do. And that's when we had some discussion further, and that's how the thoughts in the agenda packet tonight were shared. So you have the background, just a action request for consideration, whether that's tonight, 3 weeks from now. But I think in that sense, whether we're looking to table it, I would recommend action tonight being that between now and the next village board meeting, there's no groundbreaking at Kiwanis Village Park. They had shared with me that there was potential for construction as early as the 20th. I haven't heard anything back. When I emailed Sherry and Bob a few days after our meeting, Sherry had replied and said that would be like starting over, and the library would be an interesting place to have it. So I think somewhat mixed feelings. I understand when you get to a certain point, you don't want to turn back. Potentially also presumptive that the costs would go up. There may be ways to save money at the library if the electrical needs are closer, or consideration for other parts that may not be the same requirement or construction cost at Village Park. So trying to give you as many thoughts as I have. I also included from Library Director Nan, her thoughts and some potential locations. So just really trying to present you with as much information so you can be in your seats and make as best decision as. Again, this is nothing with me and Bob not being on the same page. This is simply my Parks and Recreation hat, feeling what I feel is best for the park and what the Parks and Recreation Board had shared.
Any questions or comments?
Just my 2 cents. So I sit on the Park and Rec Board as well, and we had come on the heels of having this conversation, the presentation here from Bob. And then when we went to when I was part of the meeting, I think Nick's concerns that he brought to the team were, very well thought out, and he had sought out some additional options, and his concerns I could understand. And a lot of people, the rest of the board sitting up there, also had concerns about it not coming to fruition. So, I do want to apologize for bringing it back after we had already all talked about this and had the update, and I was unaware that Bob was not here when Nick asked to bring it to the agenda. But it certainly felt fair to, have him voice his eloquent thoughts about it here.
Jim?
Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know this has gone through different iterations throughout the years, but wasn't the initial draft or concept to have an indoor pavilion or meeting space?
Initially, that was something that was kind of a joint venture.
And it like opened out into the
Community
crushed
center.
gravel,
So
but it
we
was
had-
small though.
We had started with what dream big, right, and scale back when
Right.
you have to. So we, President Knudsen, Trustee Rhodey, and I looked at a building that might even include 250-person venue with additional classroom-style recreation, community center. Is there a gym involved? Starting as large as we can. And I mean, even a quickly scaled back version was in the $2 to $3 million range, which we realized at the time, wasn't worth pursuing. That was in lockstep with the Bell Tower Memorial on what that might look like in terms of the park. Their other proposal for Kiwanis Village Park had a smaller open air pavilion, which was also eliminated. So I think the writing was on the wall for the funding and where it needed to be. And when you get to these bid or essential checkpoints, and you have to make some really tough decisions.
And seeing in the packet here, Nan, the library meeting space, what is kind of the capacity for that?
Yeah, so we have one large indoor room, which 8 people.
Okay. but bathroom facilities and everything else I see. So my thinking on this is we have this amazing library that we've been discussing for the better part of a year now ad nauseum. And 2 years, sorry, 2 years. Time flies when you're having fun. And just not saying it's underutilized now, but driving more traffic there and being that, obviously you could say this of pretty much anywhere in the village, but it is right down the street from an American Legion and the VFW. I mean, realistically, to me, it does make sense in terms of now you have the meeting space to be able to have a function when you have a memorial service, or you have the bathrooms there that are open year round opposed to the village park that closes over the winter. The library makes sense. Now, I'm also sympathetic to Bob in the fact that, and Ms. Enters, just because I have been on projects where we've had a change order in the last, the 25th hour, and it's just like, the wind falls out of your sails. But as you mentioned, Nick, like, it's a bell tower project without a bell tower, and there's no guarantee, and that's a lot of pressure they're putting on themselves too to start this project without the focal named point of the memorial, because now they're under the gun of having to provide a bell tower. No ifs, ands, buts about it. Like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. I'd probably want to try to get all the funding first, just so I didn't have to try to scramble to find a bell tower funding. But obviously we're not taking action on location tonight, but I can't, it's tough to say that the library location doesn't make sense.
I have a few thoughts on this.
Yes.
I appreciate you bringing this to us. I agree that without the bell tower there, that it doesn't make much sense. I also don't feel comfortable with having it in the library space. There are many homes around there, and I think that the bells from the bell tower might be a bit overwhelming for residents in that spot. I think that the library, it would be good for the library to have some sort of amphitheater or some sort of place to have outdoor programming. I'm not convinced that this is it.
Now keep in mind there are houses not far from where it would be located at Village Park as well.
Yeah, but there are more closer to that area. I mean, like, literally
I know.
right there.
I'm afraid that Bob is watching this from Italy.
Yeah.
The good news, it's 12:30 in the
I
morning
know,
there,
but
so
he's probably concerned.
he's got a lot of espresso
Can I
running through him.
make a motion to put a temporary hold on the project and to defer this item?
Well, as to the temporary hold on the project,
Because they were talking about breaking ground, right?
do we know if
They haven't responded to my email.
do they
So-
pull permits or anything? Do you know, or where they're at?
To my knowledge.
So we have no fear of ground being broken.
Well, there is fear.
I'm just going by what I was told yesterday, that yes, they have everything ready to go.
So, I mean, if permits have been pulled, I'm not sure what authority we have to remind me in the donation agreement. Is there some sort of timeline for schedule for construction?
I would have to look at that.
Because
I mean,
I can't remember off the
I
top
guess-
of my head.
I can't speak to that
Yeah.
right now. I would like to think if I'm sending the group that's been communicative early on,
Yeah.
they wouldn't shut the door now
Yeah.
when I'm asking questions, but I can't guarantee that. I can continue following up with, and I know Bob is the director of this project, absolutely.
I think the motion should be to direct staff to communicate with the bell tower folks to hold off on groundbreaking, because I don't want it to be
That's what I meant.
the formal motion to be some sort of, revoking
Yes.
of permits that have been issued where we
Sure.
have no authority to do
Thank
that,
you.
or breach of the donation
As a
agreement.
point of clarification, are there actually clanging bells in this? I was under the
So
impression
that's
the
what I
bell
was-
is a symbolic.
That's what I was going to address. The bells can ring, however, you won't have an attachment to them to ring them.
And it's not like a wind
with
chime
No,
type.
with exception to when they have special events there. That's the only time.
They're like electronic, right? And they
My
play-
understanding is there is a rope that would be connected for their ceremony.
There is only one
Quasimodo
bell.
bell, not an electronic.
One bell, not multiple bells.
It's bell tower, not Bell's tower.
I understand. I thought that in one point of this plan, I thought that there were electronic ones that weren't just like a big bell.
Oh, I was under the
Like, that
impression
they
it's
would.
just like during a ceremony, it's like the
Yeah.
clang of the bell, remembrance, and be done type thing.
That is how I understood it.
Okay.
That it was only to be utilized during ceremonies, which they don't have specifically laid out, but I think you'd be looking at Memorial Day, Veterans Day.
Armed Forces Day or something.
Yeah, and along with their presentation schedule.
Then I would not be opposed to it, but I think the whole project would need to be completely redesigned in order to offer several benches so that it's more of an amphitheater type thing than just plantings.
So I'll rescind my previous motion and make a motion to direct staff to communicate our concerns to the appropriate parties associated with the Bell Tower Memorial Project and to table this item until Bob brings us all our treats from Italy.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next one.
Are you just not, are you,
You know, wanna,
I guess it's closed out. I can't ask. So.
Discussion and possible action on review of the initial draft of the 2025 village budget. Matt, did you want to just give us a little heads up here on what's going on?
Yes, please. Thank you, President Knutson. Before I begin with my introductory comments, is the board comfortable with me speaking here, or would you prefer for me to stand at the podium?
Right there is fine.
You can go there.
Okay, thank you. So included in your packet was some materials, a summary of where we stand with the development of the 2025 budget, and then some supporting materials. But there are still plenty of numbers that have yet to be firmed up or determined. So this is still a dynamic process, and we'll begin and end with the discussion at that point. That there's still some numbers to be developed. For the general fund, I don't think it looks too terrible as long as the board is comfortable with borrowing for capital items and purchases. So that's the big change I'll be proposing with this budget. The general fund absorbed approximately $400,000 of expenses that would have been paid for by the transportation utility. And in order to make room for that, I took some capital items that we would have taxed for previously under capital outlay, and I proposed to put them under capital projects fund where we would borrow for them instead. So the highlights currently for the budget is that, as I mentioned earlier, the transportation utility fund has been discontinued, so there is no revenue anticipated for it in this budget, nor are there any expenses allocated to it. It already includes known increases for health insurance for 2025. It already includes the known rates for the Wisconsin retirement system for 2025. It already includes operational budgets submitted by the department heads. So we've got separate budgets, say from the library, but also the internal staff like Dave and the police and Cassie have submitted numbers for their areas. It contains a proposed 3% increase for wages for non-represented staff that are solely in control of the village. It includes an updated contribution to the library. And it includes over $200,000 in capital outlay for the police department. Some of the numbers that we don't have yet, or that we know are still in the process of changing. We do not have our 2025 numbers yet for our liability insurance, which includes workers' compensation insurance. We just received the updated numbers for the village shared revenue numbers from the state, so those have not been incorporated in the materials before you yet. I need to do that. We don't have numbers for the fire department yet. Nick is going to have some comments for us in a little bit, but we don't have any operational numbers firmed up for that area yet. Staff needs to review the fiscal agent fee charge to the library, so that hasn't been updated yet. And there is a sewer utility contribution to the general fund that needs to be added again. So those are just some of the things that I know that we need to update and add to the budget. Despite these unknowns, we presently have a small surplus, as it is before you, about $65,000. And a blessing that the village has received is that the assessed value of the village has increased quite a bit this year, so the mill rate has dropped significantly. So if the board is comfortable with this path, staff will work with Baird to structure debt for the capital projects and cater it to try to keep the mill rate as flat as possible, which I think would be nice for the community when the cost of everything else is going up so drastically. If we could present a flat mill rate to them, no change from the mill rate from the year before. My vision would be for village taxes to be as flat as possible, and for whatever increases that the residents' experience might come from a restructuring of the EMS fire charge. The utilities, unfortunately, are in a little bit of a different situation. The projects that are required of them are significant, and staff are engaged right now with a rate study with the PSC. So the cost of some of those projects is being factored in right now in those discussions, but there's still quite a few projects looming out there, especially for the water utility, that we haven't gotten our arms around yet for costs or implementation timelines and that kind of stuff. So really there needs to be a lot of work done on the staff part to form kind of a 5-year capital finance plan to figure out how these pieces fit together and how we're going to fund them. As we've done traditionally here in Pewaukee, we have some department heads here tonight, and I know that Nick has some comments that he would like to share about next year's operations. And I'm not sure if Nan has specific comments, but she is available here for questions tonight. And then at a future meeting, we'll have the police chief come and whoever else the board would like to hear from in terms of answering specific departmental questions. But in the end tonight, after we're done with that part of the discussion, what I would need from the board is either a blessing or some different feedback to pursue debt for the 2025 capital projects and purchases. This is important because there are some timelines that the village needs to adhere to. Any new debt that the village is going to take on for next year, in order for it to count against the state-imposed levy limit, that debt has to be closed out before the end of this year. So we would need to give staff those marching orders to get that all lined up and ready for board consideration. So that concludes my introductory comments. If there are any questions or comments from the board, I can certainly take those now, or we could invite Nick up for his comments.
Quick question. I have to be completely honest. With my corporate extension tax deadline yesterday, I have not had a chance to really review this at all, which I will. But talking about the debt, do you have an idea of how much debt you're considering at this point?
Yeah, it would be somewhere in the like $1.2 million. So it would be for 2 street projects and the utility work that would accompany them. And then there's 2 significant vehicles at the DP that are on the capital improvement plan for the DPW, the replacement backhoe and a replacement dump truck that amount to about $500,000.
I guess my concern with going down the debt path right away is just us not really having a chance as a board to really scrutinize overall department budgets and things before going down. So when looking at establishing the debt, I mean, I understand we're under time constraints, so I don't want to put us into a bad position there, but I also don't want to waste time either if we end up finding different routes. So from your professional experience, can those 2 things be done concurrently, where we scrutinize the budget potentially closer for things that we really need or things that we can take out, while still then looking down that path of potentially taking out debt in the event we need it? I mean, can
The-
that be done concurrently?
Yeah, trustee-
To make a valid, and to make a good educated decision?
Yeah, absolutely, trustee Bell. They can, and they can be done concurrently, and as the numbers firm up, you know, the initial work that's done to prepare the debt would change anyway, right? So that's not time wasted per se.
Okay.
And that's not unusual for a community to kind of do that dual path
Okay.
until you reach the decision point.
Is there a cost associated with that, though, if we're bringing Baird in to do that analysis for us?
No,
I mean, and if there was, I'm assuming it'd be fairly nominal anyways, and, but just curious.
I don't believe so. I think Baird makes their money when we go out for debt, and then they're part of the closing costs. They get their payment that way.
Okay. Okay. That's really all I had at this point, because, as I said, I haven't had too much of a chance to dive in too deeply yet.
Are there any other comments or questions? We do have everybody, well, not everybody, but we have the library, we have the DPW here, and the Park and Rec. Would you like to have each one give us an outlay of what their budgets are? Are there any questions as it relates to those budgets?
I have a question. I don't think Dave was supposed to present tonight, but what are the street and utility projects that are, or mainly the street projects for this time?
The big street project for next year would be repaving of West Wisconsin Avenue, which was supposed to happen this year, but we weren't able to afford it. That's from the railroad tracks to Glacier Road. And then we'll have a little bit of extra budget, so we're still trying to figure out what we're gonna repave with that. We have some water main projects that we have to do, and so we're likely gonna have street repairs in that. So that'll get used up.
And will there be water main repairs for West Wisconsin as well?
We're not relaying water main in West Wisconsin, but there's quite a few water valves that need to be dug up and rebuilt. No, there's not any significant water main relay costs.
So is it just the perfect storm of cost overruns this year and then shortage of transportation utility, that why we'd have to take debt out for it? Because I like the West Wisconsin was in this year's, but in 2024's budget. So obviously not completing it, we would assume that there would be that capital still out there, but I'm going to make the assumption that capital's gone, that we kind of put in for it for this year.
I would have to check into that, trustee Grabowski. That's a good point.
Because it's like, well, do we have a $500,000 surplus at the end of this year? You know, type thing.
Right.
Yeah. Because I mean, then we could roll some of that equipment into that and not have to take as much debt out. Because I'm with Trustee Belt on this, that these projects have to get done, especially DPW. We've been so far behind prior to you that playing catch up now is tough. But once you get into that taking debt out, it's just like your first credit card. You know, it's that slippery slope of, well, we'll just take a little bit more debt out and a little more debt out. And we haven't had to do it yet. And I don't look eagerly jumping into that part of it. But obviously the road projects need to get done.
Any other comments?
We'll scrutinize his budget at a later meeting, right? Let's get Nick up here.
Does anybody have any other questions as it relates to the budget and as far as parks and recs, libraries?
I had one question regarding Park and Rec here about that balcony at Lehman Park. So am I getting it that we're just going to keep babying that until and hope it does okay?
So to be clear, two different projects exist there that we sometimes use the term balcony on. The balcony deck is what's connected to the structure at Lehman Park. The deck, or as it's kind of also referenced in there, is the one to the northeast of the property adjacent to the next door building.
Oh,
So that one is part of the Lehman Park
Right.
property. The public are welcome to go on that deck. That's kind of a separate conversation.
yeah, the balcony though, above the
balcony
living,
above, so
the
when
living
we,
space there.
I think we shared that with you all, but the best summary I can give is we've been trying to replace it for about 2 years. We had an engineer on the project looking into it. We went out to bid, couldn't get a bid. Went out to bid, came way over. Increased our budget number, went out to bid, and couldn't get any. And then we were given through Attorney Berlinski or Blum the authority to basically work outside of public bidding, because when you need to accomplish a task but you don't have any bids, you need to still find an answer, right? In that process, when we were looking further into the engineered plans and current code, what is built there now, you can't just replace the balcony. You would have to pretty much tear down the entire garage storage space underneath. And then we don't know exactly what kind of joists are connected to the building. And and then it was kind of like, well, once the Band-Aid's off, you're probably doing siding and windows, and very quickly estimates were in like $500,000. We don't have that. So the best suggestion we had at the time was replace or repair the areas that need it. So we took out the deck boards that needed it, and then we completed a much smaller repair and then sanding and painting of it this past spring.
That makes sense, okay.
However, instead of spending what we thought would be $90,000, we spent about 10. So that was a
So-
solid win.
And then as far as the deck goes, what, can you kind of say a little bit about what you're
And
envisioning?
now we're talking deck along the shoreline, right? So the first thing we're doing is gathering quotes to determine two different options. Should we be repairing it or should we be replacing it? I don't think we're really looking at removal, because I think if you remove it, you'd have a hard time ever getting the permits to put one back in at that point. We're gonna look and see what those two quotes come in at, and then we would come back to the Park and Rec Board and to you all. And then we need to have a really strong plan as to what that deck utilization is gonna look like. It's something we've had communication with Loie Lehman, the previous family owner of Lehman Park, as to what that looks like and how it's utilized, potentially for their business, for the public, and really creating a more welcoming atmosphere to others.
Great.
Any other questions for Nick? Are there any questions as it relates to the library?
Lots, but none that can really be answered tonight, I don't think.
Or at least right now.
No? Okay. Any questions at all on any parts of the budget?
Well, I guess I will say, knowing that what we still have to determine with the library agreement, probably should hold off on the library budget until everyone is brought up to speed. Am I wrong in assuming that?
Maybe as much as we can. Numbers have to be established in the weeks to come.
Right.
So.
I just mean, like, right now, we seem kind of out of order.
Indeed.
In terms of even this meeting.
I agree.
Actually, 100% this meeting, we're out of order of what, approving a library budget that,
It's awkward.
yes.
However, we do have to approve
Correct.
funding so that we would be doing the minimums, right?
Yes, that is July, September.
Yes, so we have to do that tonight.
That's later on in the agenda.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying right now, like, not knowing what funds are coming in to be able to.
I don't think we're approving anything, no. You're just looking for.
Right,
for
discussion,
feedback right
yeah.
now. And I know that it's not a full discussion because you can't have it at this point.
Right.
Maybe you could speak a little bit to the roof
Well, yes, so, obviously with this budget, it was prepared, I was under the instruction of the library board to prepare a budget as if we exist as usual moving forward. in
Copacetic.
2025. So, that is what I did. And that is what these numbers are for. So everything the same, that's what the budget would look like for 2025, or what we have come up with. With that as well, obviously the building will be 20 years old this year. And so the library board as well started to look at capital needs for the building. It's getting to that point. And with that, that's where you were also provided with a 5-year capital plan. With the roof is definitely the item that the library board deemed of most importance in order to ensure that the structure is maintained, that we don't incur additional damage issues if we have. We've had some leakage if we start to incur additional leakage. So that was deemed by the library board to be the priority capital project that would need to be addressed.
Thank you. Does there anyone else have any questions?
As far as the roof, do we have an estimate on a cost?
That's
Is
page
that in there?
35.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Once again, received that quote 2 years ago, so inflationary issues.
I'm sure it's gone up, unfortunately. Are we comfortable with moving on to the next item then? Is everybody okay?
No. Yeah, we don't need any action tonight. I was just looking for feedback from the board, looking for, if there's any material you were specifically looking for that I did not provide, that kind of thing. Otherwise, I'm kind of hearing that I should proceed and continue, update the numbers as they come in, and we have the West Wisconsin budgeting question to answer, and so that's what we'll prepare for October 1.
Thank you.
Is it possible on the view, like the detail one down below, when you're giving us these views, to do like any sort of notes on the side for any big changes or discrepancies for what's driving that? Is that possible? Or is that something?
Do you have an example?
Yes. So I'm just referring to the general fund and the capital budgets pages. I had some examples earlier when I was looking at it, but no.
What we can do,
Just like big swings, like to call out, and maybe we'll just talk through that. We normally go through all the details of.
We can ask questions in real time.
I can work on that.
Okay.
I can work on that.
Maybe it's not
I understand
necessary.
what you're asking for.
Yeah.
I can work on that.
And understanding the cadence, right, of some of the things that happen every 5 or every 3 replacement.
Right, that would be super helpful, but maybe I just need to do my homework on that. So I don't want to put more on your plate, but thank you.
Sure.
Any further discussion or comments, questions? Okay, then I'm going to move on to item E. Review, discussion, and possible action on approval of checks and invoices for all funds for August 2024. I will look for a motion to approve all funds except for the library as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second, Krasovich.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. And then next, we have, I'll look for a motion to acknowledge the budget or all funds for the library for August 2024.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge the library funds for August.
Second, Krasovich.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Again, any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their
Hey, Jeff,
opinions with
don't we
board
have-
members on
Don't we
any
have,
topic.
we still have an item here, don't we have the library, counting the item 11B that it said refer to?
That will be in open session after we
That's
reconvene.
after?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I was up in the resolution, so I assumed we had to do
Okay.
it before.
Nope,
Okay,
you're
my
fine.
bad.
All right. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with board members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the board is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the board. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speakers, with time being indicated by an audible alarm. When the alarm sounds, speakers are asked to conclude their comments. Speakers are asked to use the podium and state their name and address. Is there anybody here that would like to make a comment? Okay. Then we were going to move into closed session. Item 10. The Village Board of Village of Pewaukee entered a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Section 1885 1G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is referring oral or written advice concerning strategy adopted by the body with respect to litigation which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically regarding CJM and W Investments Company, CO Walmart versus Village of Pewaukee, case number 23ZV 1089, and pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 1985 1E, deliberating and negotiating and purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, and conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session, specifically regarding contract negotiations with police, labor union, and pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 1985 1E, deliberating and negotiating and purchasing of public property, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically regarding the building lease for the public library and the joint library agreement with the city of Pewaukee. I would look for a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Gergen,
Yes.
trustee Belt,
Yes.
trustee Krasovich,
Yes.
trustee Kreiser,
Yes.
trustee Grabowski,
Yes.
President Knutson.
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear everybody's name. What's that? Probably. Yes. Yeah.
So, has the board met planning it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, we were here last September, I think. Was the last time I joined you guys.
Is there anybody out there coming back in?
Nan?
Oh, we got one, Nan, okay. Okay. Item A, possible action on settlement agreement with Walmart Incorporated.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed settlement agreement.
Second, Gergen.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Possible action on library building lease.
I'll make a motion to proceed as directed in closed session.
Second, Krasovich?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Item C, possible action on joint library agreement with the city of Pewaukee.
I'll make a motion to proceed as directed in closed session.
Do we have a second?
Grabowski.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item D, we are not going to do anything with this evening. Item 12, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion is hereby carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. This is the other, remember what we were talking about, the 50 grand?
Boba's is open till 9, and it's a fundraiser for the library. So